nostalgic, sometimes cynical look back at pop culture. Join us as we look at movies, television, and cartoons and ask, does this hold up or did I just ruin my childhood? As always, I'm Steve, flying solo today without Megan, as these quick good, bad, ugly reviews are my own little project. And today we're looking at episode 2 of Lanterns on HBO Max. So, Lanterns episode 2 is an hour long, and for this video, I'm just going to hit on some of the good, some of the bad, and some of the ugly things about the episode. In October, as a reminder, once the series has aired, Megan and I will be reviewing Lanterns on the podcast and comparing it to the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie, as our current season is all about remakes, reboots, and sequels. Episode 2 takes us back to 2016, where Hal Jordan continues training John Stewart while the two investigate the alien deaths in Rushville, Nebraska. Hal's teaching style isn't exactly helpful. His advice for learning to fly basically amounts to you fly. Part of this, I think, has to do with the fact that, Hal is a fighter pilot. So flying and thinking in 3 dimensions, possibly even a 4 dimensions, really, if you're thinking about it, comes naturally to Hal. So I think that that's part of the issue he's having translating that over to John, but also these things should be instinctual, and John seems to be a bit stifled. So his basic advice for learning is just fly, and John fails to get airborne, but manages something potentially far more significant. He creates a small green bird construct that continues to exist and follow him even after he's removed the Green Lantern ring. Again, I'm not sure if this really connects with the comics. Usually in the comics, you have to keep concentration and have the ring on to have constructs work. And once you take the ring off and it's separated from you, normally your constructs diminish or cease to exist. The investigation then splits the partners up. Hal sends John to his home in Coast City to retrieve his power battery and recharge the ring. While there, John gets a glimpse of Hal's strange and lonely personal life, including his unusual alien plant Earl. But John is abducted before he can return. John's captors are aliens searching for a manhunter, one of the ancient artificial beings created by the Guardians before the Green Lantern Corps. There's a lot of history in the comics for the manhunters. They did not, I don't believe in the comics, have the ability to take shape of whatever they wanted. That's kind of just designed here for the Lanterns series. I think they're sort of mashing together the Manhunters from Green Lantern lore and maybe Martian Manhunter, who has nothing to do with that. He's called a Manhunter because on Mars, that's what like the police are called, and he was a policeman on Mars. But he can change shape into anything he wants. And I don't know if that was just an oversight or again, we're going to see through this episode and through the last 2 episodes of the series. There's a lot of places here where the writers seem to not be well educated and not have done any research. And this might be part of that where they're making this mistake. So these aliens reveal that a manhunter was responsible for devastating their people and believe one may now be hiding on Earth. The revelation makes John increasingly suspicious that the Guardians and perhaps Hal himself aren't telling him everything. Meanwhile, Hal discovers that the supposed metal detectors around Rushville are actually capable of detecting aliens. They're a high level of technology that can pick up on aliens that cross through the detectors. And they seem to be not only at the sports field where the shootings happened, but also in all the buildings around town. And this leads his investigation toward William Macon, who we met in episode 1, who runs the cowboy ranch and is the mysterious forces kind of surrounding him. The confrontation leaves Hal injured. Hal gets shot when he tries to trespass on their property and basically question William Macon as to where he's got this technology from. Eventually, John decides to trust Hal and tells him what he's learned about the Manhunter. Together, they begin connecting the mystery back to Abin Sur, the lantern whose death originally led to Hal receiving his ring. Seems like the aliens who abducted John don't trust Hal because they think that Hal was the Green Lantern who helped the Manhunter get to Earth or lost the Manhunter on Earth, however it happened, when it seems like more so it was Abin Sur who had Hal's ring before him that had done that, possibly when he died on Earth and the ring went to Hal. So then we get a little bit more of a reveal. Hal travels off world once his power ring is recharged, to visit an imprisoned figure from his past, Sinestro. We get a little bit of a peek to this. It's a little bit of a lore dump when Hal's in the hospital and the sheriff basically says that he was saying Sinestro's name in his sleep. So she looked him up on Google and tells us, the basic information that Sinestro was a Green Lantern, but he switched sides and basically he killed one of the Guardians, and so he was caught by Hal basically. We know if you're a fan of the Green Lantern lore, you know that Sinestro and Hal. Sinestro, I believe, was one of the Green Lanterns that helped train Hal initially. He was already a well-respected Lantern when Hal became a Green Lantern, and then Sinestro did change sides. He eventually ends up getting a yellow ring, which is based off the fear power, and then becomes kind of one of Hal's nemesis. So Hal asks what Sinestro knows about the Manhunters, but Sinestro appears considerably more interested in Hal's new trainee, John Stewart. Ominously suggests that John may represent an even greater threat than the Manhunter. The big question coming out of episode 2, really, who or what is the Manhunter hiding in Rushville? I'm going to be honest. I think the number of other people on YouTube have mentioned that it's probably going to be a woman. I think so because there seems to be a huge red herring where everyone keeps mentioning that the Manhunter is a man or he, and they keep stressing that, which I think is being used by the writers in a really poor way to try to throw us off. So that's one of the questions, really. Why can John maintain a construct without the ring, yet he seems to have no other talent for using the ring whatsoever? He can't fly, he can't really do much of anything. What are the Guardians hiding, right? Also, what does Sinestro know about John? And they still have the ultimate question that's coming out episode 1, which is how does Hal Jordan eventually die, or whatever the construct of Jordan is that was found at the end of episode 1. So that's just a basic recap so that you know sort of what happened within the episode. So let's get started with the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good that I found in this episode, Kyle Chandler as Hal. I'm not sure how the writers meant for us, the viewers, to connect with Hal Jordan. The script tries to make him look kind of washed up and worn out, but to be honest, it doesn't really work. Despite the worst intentions of the series writing team, I like Hal Jordan. To be honest, he's one of the only likable characters in this series. I still feel that Kyle Chandler is well suited for the role and could knock it out if he were given writers who had even a slight amount of talent. Hal Jordan is the primary reason I keep watching, and any scene that he's not in, I find myself just waiting for him to be on screen again. The other good that I really liked from this episode was Sinestro. Ulrich Thompson plays Sinestro in the series, and I was super happy to see him in the end of the episode. I expect we'll open episode 3 continuing this scene with a conversation between Sinestro and Hal. Thompson has over 112 acting credits, so he has a ton of experience. I know him best from the roles in the shows Banshee and The Blacklist. Just his 2 minutes on screen at the end of this episode were impactful, and I could kind of feel the presence that was being conveyed, and I liked it. So that was really a great piece of this episode as well. So let's get into the bad. The one bad I found so far in this episode was Jon Stewart is falling, in my opinion. Again, I mentioned last week that I liked Aaron Pierre in this role, but the script is really making him unlikable. He's constantly complaining and acting entitled to a position that he hasn't shown us he deserves yet. Numerous times in the episode, he tells people he was sent to Coastal City to get out of Hal's way. Basically, Hal is just trying to, get him out of his way. When it's very clear that the lantern that he was sent for is essential to Hal's powers. And the fact that John is sent to his home, allowed access to his interdimensional safe, and trusted to complete the mission shows how much Jordan has placed trust in him. John can't see that because he's just completely stuck on the fact that he deserves to be a Lantern and he would be a better Green Lantern than Hal Jordan, which is there's no evidence to that whatsoever. We know from the past 25, 30 years that Hal Jordan has been a Green Lantern that he saved the Earth multiple times. We know even at the beginning of episode 1, he just returned from off world where he helping to settle a peace agreement on another world, right? So he has a ton of experience and a ton of success as a Green Lantern, and Jon Stewart feels like he's just owed it because you know what? He worked hard and he has a dad who abused him by shooting at him. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm really struggling with that. There's a scene here too where John finds Hal's Green Lantern uniforms and he's holding them up in the mirror kind of enviously. Again, it just shows that Jon Stewart thinks the ring and the costume make someone a Green Lantern, which is really the opposite of the truth. The ring chooses the person based on what their character is, which John seems to lack so far. All right, let's move into the ugly. The biggest ugly that I found in this series, and especially this episode as we continue, is the writer's room. It is becoming very obvious that the writers involved in this series have no respect for superheroes or even heroic stories. The first two episodes have displayed very little understanding of the Green Lantern mythos or who those characters should be. There's a pandemic in Hollywood of writers with a severe lack of imagination, and I think it has infected this series as well. Once again, we have a script that was written as whatever story the writers wanted, and then covered in the skin of an established IP, because the writers aren't talented enough to create their own characters or attract their own followings. This may be the death of the show, of the DCU, and eventually of Hollywood altogether, unless a cure can be found to this lack of imaginative writers. That's my quick good, bad, and ugly review for the episode 2 of Lanterns. But you know what? What did you think? Let me know in the comments. I would really like to hear your thoughts on the second episode of Lanterns. How do you think it's going so far? Did it meet your expectations? It's struggling with mine. Like and subscribe for more videos on movies, TV, and cartoons from our childhood, as well as the remakes, reboots, and sequels that may have ruined it. I'm Steve, and remember, nostalgia is not a crime.